start with the Fakataku that Erika wrote. Ko le kia hawhanga he tā malu e whanua, whakatapu ki he hoeki o ko mea, whakatūau atu kia haa a ki lotu, mo haa whaiwhakau, tūau mo haa poto, haa punake, mo haa tauke, kai ata a, moku e wainga marini, tapu mo e wakaawhe ma ke he oku me mea mo ki tau tolu ko Amanaki Prescott, whakawhetai he ma'u kua. And so that was the whakatapu that Erika made. Welcome to Tonga. This virtual space started back in May 2020 as an invitation to all with the desire to learn the Tongan language and culture. We meet weekly over a Tongan Lisoni, then continue to Potanoa about other related topics. In February 2021, Honorable Federica Tuta was invited as a guest speaker and conveyed to us that her mother, Her Royal Highness Princess Pilolevu herself, wanted to gift the group name of Tonga for us in the diaspora to remember the love for our motherland. Before we begin today, we have a few rules of engagement. Our rules of engagement are aligned with our Tongan core values and how we choose to define them in this space. Due to past tensions and incidents in this space, we have taken a lot of time and attention in creating these rules of engagement. If any of these rules make you feel called out, please sit with why that is. Feel free to reach out to folks who are willing to unpack that together with you. So the rules of engagement are whakaapa, acknowledging and returning respect, anga whakatokilalo, loto to, humility and open to learning, tahiwaha'a, tahiwa, keeping the relationship ongoing, alive and well, mama hime, loyalty and passion. And so I'll just go over them really quickly. Sorry, I'm so rushed right now. Be respectful of everyone's learning journey. Be respectful of everyone's backgrounds. We stand with our late and queer community. We have zero tolerance for homophobic, anti-queer slurs rhetoric. We stand with our Kainga Ululi community. We have zero tolerance for anti-Blackness. We do not use the N-word, abbreviation of AAVE, and other Tongan derogatory terms or rhetoric. Anga whakatokilalo or lotu to. Be open to learning other perspectives and experiences that are different from your own. Be humble and take accountability when called out for causing harm onto others. Sit and lean into discomfort. Admit when you have caused harm to others, your impact is greater than your intentions. Pass the mic and make space for others to speak. When bringing up heavy topics of discussion, especially regarding harm and violence, please consider facing trigger warnings for the well-being of others in the space, check in on each other, reach out and offer, ask ways to help or ways to amend any harm you've caused. Accept the consequences when you aren't following the rules of engagement. Possible suspension from the group until actions to making amends are made. And the last one is Mama Hime. Try to attend weekly meetings as much as possible. Be proactive in your role in the space. Bring good energy to the space. Share what you've learned and invite other fellow Tongans with similar interests, desire to learn. Be better allied to those most marginalized in our communities. Speak up when something doesn't feel right. And now that I've gone over all this stuff, I'll pass it to Pauline to introduce Hope.
Hi everyone. Siota ofa kainga ko hokuhingoa ko Pauline Fonua. I am so excited to introduce our guest speaker tonight. And I am like, okay, let me just get to it because I could go for days how excited I am. Hope is an actress, writer, dancer, choreographer, producer, and director of Tongan descent living in New Zealand. As a playwright, she became the first whakaleiti to have her work published in New Zealand with Inky Pinky Ponky, co-written with Lecky Jackson Burke. This play was awarded Best Teenage Script in 2015 by New Zealand Play Market. As an actress, she was awarded Best Performance at the 2015 Auckland Fringe Festival for Victor Rogers' Girl on the Corner. Her acting credits include The Breaker Uppers in 2018, Sis 2020, The Panthers 2021, The Pact 2021, and Sui Generis, sorry if I mispronounced that, 2022, in which she is also a writer for the TV series. Hope competed as a dancer in the World Hip Hop Dance Championship in 2011 and has been a judge at the National Hip Hop Championship in New Zealand over several years. Hope was born in New Zealand. Both of her parents are Tongan from the villages Sopu and Vava'u. When her parents migrated to New Zealand in the 1980s, her family lived in Mount Roskill, Auckland, where she grew up as one of 13 siblings. From 2003, she attended Linfield College and won the school's Talent Quest competition at the age of 15. From then on, Hope went to compete in multiple national hip hop competitions in New Zealand, and two separate occasions had traveled to Los Angeles to compete in the World Hip Hop Dance Championship in 2018 and 2011. Without further ado, I'm going to turn the time over to Hope.
I'm shy. Malolele, everyone. Oh my gosh, I'm so shy. This is yeah, you'd think I was like used to like speaking, but I'm so introverted. I really thank you so much, Pauline, for the beautiful intro. Oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. I'm sorry, everybody. I'm never gonna get used to this stuff, but yeah, I'm really humbled and grateful to be here. Yeah, it's an honor to be, I don't know, sharing my lame ass boring story to people on the other side of the world. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's, yeah, Paulina basically talked about my upbringing. I'm Tongan, and I'm Tongan throughout, inside and out. I'm so proud of who I am as a Tongan and as a whakaleiti. My dad's a whaiwhekau, a minister, so you could only imagine the amount of drama I went through growing up, but also super grateful that my dad is, because I'm probably quite fortunate compared to a lot of my other sisters in our community, because I was never kicked out of home. I never got the mad hiding. So I'm actually quite really fortunate compared to the others. So, but I don't know what to say apart from thank you for having me. I'm really shy. Yeah. Any questions? Yeah, I mean, oh my gosh, this is really weird. I mean, but if you have any questions, feel free to, I don't know how you guys do that. I mean, do you guys just like unmute and ask, or do you put it in like the chat? But yeah, I mean, like, I can talk about some of the work I do, I guess, maybe.
Recording in progress.
So this year alone, and the next half of the year, I'm actually writing a TV series, which is I got some funding from New Zealand On Air, which is the first Tongan TV series based around whakaleiti. And it's actually about my first love in high school. Lame, like who writes that? I wrote this play like 8 years ago, and all of a sudden the white money is like coming towards me and they're like, oh my gosh, this is so new. I'm like, it's not new, boo. It's been around for years. But you just haven't been, like, I guess, exposed to our culture and basically exposed to my community. So they love it. And I'm not complaining because, again, it's paying for my parents' cabin bread and breakfast bread and their tea. So I'm not complaining because my parents still getting fed. That's basically the main goal in life for me is to ensure that my parents are fed and that they have a house over their head. I mean, coming from a family of 13 and being the only whakaleiti, I'm not married, I don't have any kids. So basically my number one priority is really my parents. And I think, oh my gosh, I'm just going everywhere. Anyways, we'll get back into that. Yeah, so basically I'm writing a TV series. I'm also writing a feature film. My dance company right now is doing a digital performance art piece that's going to be traveling around the world in the cabaret circuit because due to COVID, we can't travel. So I was just like, okay, how else am I going to make money? Okay, let's do a digital version and hopefully these festivals buy it. So basically that's what I've kind of done with my dance company. So we were filming and in the studio all week. I don't know if you follow me on Instagram, but we've been in the studio. You might have seen it on my story. We've been in the studios recording because of my company. I have like a 9-piece band. I have singers and I have about 13 dancers, all from the community. They're all either whakaleiti, whawhawhinge, akawaine, takatapuhi. Yeah, so there's that. As well, what else am I doing this year? I just recently got asked to feature in Women's Day, which is like New Zealand's like mainstream magazine. It sits like in every store, which is a little, I haven't said yes because it's just like, I think people think it's like they're giving me an opportunity, like, oh my gosh, we're going to put you in this great magazine and you're going to be like all over. But also like being a trans woman, you really need to think about whether you want to be on mainstream like magazines, because it's also allowing outsiders to really speak into your craft and your life, especially if you read that stuff and read reviews. And I refuse to. I'd never read reviews. This sounds so weird because I'm just talking about myself, which is really stupid and feels yucky. My company goes on tour in October. Yeah, basically the next half of the year is really quite full on and quite busy. I also have a 9-to-5 job and I work in public health. I work for a service called Whene Pasifika Aotearoa, and there's only 2 services in the whole of New Zealand that caters to Pasifika rainbow people and their families. That's my 9-to-5. And then I study at night because I'm at police prep school. I'm actually the first trans brown woman in New Zealand to apply and get this far within police college. And I didn't do it to be the first. It just so happened to be. And I was really irritated. This is me going on a tantrum. I was so irritated because I was like, girl, we're in 2022. You're telling me there is no trans woman in this police force? Girl, get it together. But I'm also very grateful. Thank you, Jesus. It's just very tiring, but I'm also very grateful for my many opportunities. I mean, I find people always like, how do you have so much time? I'm like, well, as a queen, I'm multifaceted. Some of you normal people are only 2-dimension. So I always tell people, like, as a Pasifika queer woman, I know some, because I was never born in Tonga, and I've actually never been to Tonga, which is really sad. I've been to Samoa, and I've been everywhere else, but I have never been to Tonga. The truth, I guess, about that is that I've been quite traumatized growing up in regards to our culture and how it was really mean to me. Growing up being told that if I was to go to Tonga, that I'd be told to sit in the corner and would be told never, that I wouldn't be allowed to move unless I walked and spoke a certain type of way. So that really traumatized me as a kid. Girl, I didn't even go to my grandparents' funeral. I was just like, no, thank you, Jesus. You can take care of them now, but I'm not going to Tonga. And so every time I get opportunities to go to Tonga, I start to get really like scared. So I've never really been to Tonga. But I do, the one thing that people, I guess the drama in my community right now is that there's this massive drama between queens that are born in the islands and then queens who are born here in New Zealand. And I guess there is a major difference. I mean, in regards to visual appearance, I think it's just because we have access to healthcare and access to like hormone therapy. There's a difference visually, but I think at heart, the one thing that's like the same is that our passion and our, I guess, love for our parents and family stays the same. That would never change. It's never, I guess, changed for me. I've always had my siblings and my sisters, especially my sisters, because my brothers are fine. Oh, they're right. Coming from a massive family, my sisters and my parents are probably my number one priority. I'm going everywhere. I'm so sorry. I'm just like jibber jabbing. So excuse me, but yeah. My goal was never to be the first whakaleiti to do anything. I just had a massive passion for performing arts. as a person growing up in church, whakame in church, I was always the big mouth. I was always screaming my lesonis and my verses. I was always dancing at church, but also it was a place that really probably traumatized me growing up. I have a really strong relationship with the Lord. I personally have a really great relationship with I have a really big religious side as well as a cultural side. And I think people find that really weird because I'm also trans, but that's something I'm still trying to navigate even to this day. My dad is probably one of my best friends, and I think he's one of my best friends because out of all my siblings, I could sit there and have probably like intense debate about religious issues and verses. But I think that's the beautiful thing is that me and my dad actually have a talanoa about it, and we can unpack and talk about stuff that he might not agree with in regards to my life, but also the stuff that I question the Bible. But again, it's awesome talanoa that I get to have with my dad. I'd rather have that than not have that relationship where I can't have that kind of conversation with my dad. In New Zealand, there isn't a whole lot of like whakaleiti. There's probably more whawhawhinge everywhere. Yeah, man, it's so, I've always been scared of talking about Tongan art and Tongan work because I was always scared of doing it. When it came to Pacific dance and merging Pacific dance with my hip hop style, to be quite honest, I was probably doing Siva Samoa first and learned Siva Samoa first before doing Tongan Tawalunga. I found that the Siva Samoa and the Tongan Samoan culture kind of embraced me a little bit more easier than it was for our Tongan side. And so my dance company, which is a Pacific contemporary dance company, it's mixed with Vogue, Whacking, and Siva Samoa. We're only just kind of delving into Tongan Tawalunga only because our people are so reserved, if it's okay to say, and quite old school in their thinking. But it's so funny because it's like everywhere I go and I see a lot of Tongans, they're really accepting and really lovely to me. But I also, I feel like it's only because of the reputation I have, whereas I feel like it's not the same reciprocated to like queens who aren't as well known. So I'm just calling out some of our people, okay? Because I'm just like, girl, don't be mean. But that's the same as church. We have people at church trying to like get me to marry some of the guys at church. I'm like, that's only because some of them need a green card. But it's just like, people are just like, literally like, Naki's so good. She's got a bachelor's degree. She does all of this. Bring this guy and see if they should get married. I'm like, girl, please. But again, just even that conversation at church and being allowed to talk about marriage for a whakaleiti is a big deal. But it's just so sad that it's okay for them to have that conversation about me because I have a reputation, which is quite silly. And I find that my church only started accepting me after I built a name for myself. But before then, girl, I was like, yeah, I was not allowed to come and like make up, my hair done. I had to wear like a tupeno and everything. But now at church, I'm just like walking around in my dress, trying to look like Beyonce, sounding like Jay-Z. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm going on and on and on. I'm so sorry. Feel free to ask questions. This is the first platform where I'm actually talking about my culture, which is such a beautiful thing. I jumped at the opportunity because I'm just like, yes, I get to jam with some like Tongans because I love our people. Sorry, any questions?
You do have some questions. Let me read you some questions.
Okay, yes.
That was awesome and wonderful. Thank you. Even though you feel like you're going all over the place, I was following everything you were saying. So it was really good. Okay, so the first question that I'm seeing here is from Nia Maile. Nia writes, there are so many conversations to be had around our whakaleitis. Where should these conversations start? What bases do you suggest they cover?
That's such a good question. I mean, recently, I don't know if you guys know Ezra Folau and some of the stuff he's like an NRL player and some of the statements he made. He made some really mean statements in regards to the Bible and gay people and like just anyone rainbow basically. And I remember in New Zealand it was such a massive deal. And I think one thing that really hit home for me was that it was like a war between both my communities, my religious and cultural community, as well as my community in regards to my sexuality and gender. And people were like going back and forth, and it was so hard for like Pacific rainbow people. But I think what people tend to forget that it was even harder for Tongan whakaletis. Why? Because he was Tongan. And we all know that Tongan and our culture, like our religion is our culture. And one thing that really irritated me was that no one really reached out to the Tongan whakaliti community to really check in and see, how are we doing? How do we navigate a conversation? Because it really sits at home with us, because being Tongan and having Ezra Folau, who is an icon to a lot of our male Tongan community, and he's talking just ill about our community. And then, yeah, it was just really frustrating for me as a Tongan. And so I really spoke up and really just reminded everyone not to pigeonhole us. I think people tend to forget that they pigeonhole all our trans girls into one community, like whakaliti, whawhawhinge, like a vaine. And I think it's really important that we need to separate all of us, because again, people tend to forget that Samoan, in my opinion, I feel like Samoans a lot more, they tolerate our queens. No, they're actually more accepting of our queens, and Tonga just tolerates us. And I guess part of my platform that I've only just kind of tried to accept is that having conversations like this, and when it comes to having Pacifica rainbow topics or narrative being spoken to in a space, I think it's important to have like especially if it's wrapped around whakalete, that it's important to have a whakalete at the table running that conversation and basically speaking, facilitating that conversation, and I've never had the guts to do it because, girl, I'm shit scared. Sorry, excuse my language. It's just, our people can be really mean. They're so mean. Oh my gosh. Yeah, our people can be so mean. So I still am trying to figure out how do we start having real conversations about the term whakalete and us queens. I mean, hello, I have never been to Tonga and I really should go, but I mean, I always felt like I was never in the right position, or I'm never the right person to start that conversation, because I'm still trying to accept or still trying to warm up to our culture, because man, they really did do some damage to me growing up. But I still rep it with everything I do. I carry Tonga with me everywhere I go. But there's no denying in regards to, yeah, just it being really, really tough on me. Growing up, trauma! Oh my gosh, there's all these, is this questions on the side here?
There are comments and questions, and people are saying, my heart, I'm so sorry. And just a lot of people agreeing with some of the things that you're sharing. As you're going through it, I'll go ahead and ask you another question. A question that that I would like to know is, what are some things that you have hope for future ladies within our culture? What kind of hope that you would like, that you think would help the next generation, that should be worked on right here, right now?
In the future, I would like to hope that would be in a place where we are enough without having all these accolades. Do you know what I mean? That it becomes normal, that seeing a whakalete, isn't like, I guess, shunned upon. That we are just as, I think we tend to forget, we're all humans, we bleed the same. I have emotions, I have feelings. It's really hard especially when you're going something against like religion, when you're constantly fighting against something like religion. And when religion is so embedded into our culture, there's this constant battle. And yeah, I felt like the only reason why I've been so accepted in our Tongan community is because of the amount of work I've done. But it's also like, it sucks that I had to go through all of that and get all of that just to be accepted in our community. Be like, yay, she's actually good. She's one of the good ones. I think it comes down to just having the courage, especially I think it comes down from home and our parents being able to have that strong conversation in talanoa. I know it's not easy because we don't usually have these type of conversations at home around the table, but I think we're shifting into a generation where I feel like we're just a little bit more woke. And I just want to encourage, like, I think it starts from home and our parents being able to have those tough conversations with our queer, Pacifica, non-binary children. I mean, as soon as you could see like something is like, oh my gosh, this child might be a rainbow child, or this child might be one of those amazing, super multi-talented queens. Let's start a conversation and let's protect them. I think the first thing our family or just any family goes through is just like, as soon as they start to realize or unpack that their child might be rainbow, the first thing they do is like, oh my gosh, we need to go find a counselor. We need to go. But it's like, why? There's nothing wrong with them. Like, why do you all of a sudden want to take them to counseling and seek help? Like, it's not there. The help is at home. Do you know what I mean? And it sucks to say that a lot of us queens find refuge and leaving home because our house is so not a safe space. They like to go to school. And so when it came to lockdown and everyone staying home, oh my gosh, girl, because I work for the service that looks after our young queens. Girl, my phone was going off because these kids are like stuck at home in a place that's not safe. Our people, we need to remind our people at home that our home is meant to be a safe space and a place for the young kids to run to. We need to remember that. And if we don't have that, if we haven't built that safe space at home, yeah, your kids are just not, you're gonna find them elsewhere on the streets, working to get their coin, because there's no doubt about it. We all know that some of our queens work the streets to get their coins. Why? Because we live in a society that won't allow us to use our chosen names and will like misgender us, and no one wants to be in a space like that. Even being in police school right now, like I'm getting misgendered all the time. It's nothing I haven't been through, so I was just like, yeah, keep doing this to me and I'll write a play about you and then you'll regret it. No jokes. Yeah, so I guess it starts from home. It's important to have these conversations and these talanoa at home around the table with some food and just to really unpack. And I know it's kind of it's hard because we're Tongans, and even at my house at the first it was really hard having these conversations. The first thing my dad, because I never had to come out at home. Again, I was quite fortunate. I never had to come out. I kind of transitioned slowly in my teens, and the one time I wanted to go out clubbing, I wore a dress and I came downstairs, and the first thing my dad said to me was that my dress was too short, and I was like, okay, sweet. So I just put it down a little bit. I was like, let us. But also one thing I do need to like also address is that I think in our community, Whakaleiti community here in Tonga, in New Zealand, a lot of them, okay, I probably get in trouble for this. A lot of our queens, especially the young gen, kind of, oh, I'm going to be in so much trouble for this. I feel like some of them do kind of expect everything handed to them on a silver platter. It's like, girl, if all your siblings have to work, darling, you can't stay at home, put on makeup and do your hair and sing Beyonce all day. You need to find a job too, my dear. Like, who do you think you is? Just because you were born in a basket with rainbows and like, I'm sorry, but you have to find a job as well. Like, girl, we all have to work. But also they need to, one thing I always educate the young queens is to really understand that our family is also transitioning with us. So I'm sorry if your name's called Sione and you want to be called Beyonce, and sometimes they miss, because like, you know, it's just, I feel like a lot of the queens do really need to come to a place of like, instead of coming from a place of being angry and constantly being pissed off at your family, but come from a place of education wise, like to educate our families and to really be open to having tough conversations, because especially when it's rare to have, like, well, it's not so rare, but it's like, how often do we have open whakaleiti or open trans people in our Pacific homes? Like, we need to, I always also encourage our young queens to be in a position to educate your family, but also understand that our families are going through that transition with us. But not all journeys are the same. Again, I'm quite privileged compared to the other queens, but yeah. Oh my gosh, that's such a long answer, right? It starts from home, girl. Have a talanoa. Koia be.
Thank you so much. I just want to remind everyone, if you'd like to ask a question, feel free to unmute yourself and go ahead, or put your name out on the chat and I can just call on you if that's what you prefer. But the space is open to ask any questions.
Hi, do you prefer Amanaki or Hope? Or
Either. Amanaki or Hope.
Okay.
It's just because the white people don't know how to say Amanaki, so I'm like, Hope.
Okay, I'm gonna say Amanaki. Hi, Amanaki.
Okay.
I just want to come and say thank you for even joining our talanoa. And just like you keep saying, you don't want to share too much, but I could sit here and listen to you all day. So don't even hold back. I'm also scared of like unmuting because I have a little baby and I don't want him to scream when I unmute. But I just wanted to come on and just give you your flowers. I didn't even realize that you were doing all these things, on the side of like. Because I think I came across your platform through Felicia and the work that you work with, is it the FINE project in Aotearoa? So I love your talanoas that you have on there. And I just learned so much from Felicia as well. And just the idea of like how queerness is indigenous, that idea alone of like that alone, I'm like, how do our people not understand this? How do our people, our culture that is such an indigenous culture, how is that not connecting for us? So anyways, I didn't really have a question, just more so a comment of giving you your flowers and that I love you so much. Koyape, ofatu.
Thank you, Lalika. The hand is raised by Lisiate. The time is yours.
Hi, Amanaki. It's me, Lisiate. I just wanted to say thank you for sharing. Yeah, like Lalika, more of a comment than a question, but I just love how when you were talking about like as far as your relationship with your family, like the grace you give them, even though they might be like combative or even like harmful to you, like just the fact that you're allowed that you even think to give them grace, what you said about our families are transitioning with us. I feel like that's a beautiful way to put it. And like Lilika was saying, I could just listen to you talk for for a long time because it's super informative to me, and it kind of helps me. And I was like, okay, how can I actually like show support, and it's by being quiet, even though I'm talking right now, and listening, to you. So thank you so much, Amanaki, for being here.
Again, please feel free to unmute and ask away. I want to be conscious of time. And so we've had Amanaki here for about 40 minutes. We'd keep you here forever, but I don't know what the rest of your day looks like. Okay, Masi, the time is yours.
Hello. Hi, Amanaki. I first want to say I absolutely adore you. I remember watching you as a little kid and just seeing someone who's queer really just made my day. I'm gay, and it was hard for me to kind of listen to your stories. It's hard with our families, to try to help them to understand, who we are, and just help them understand that we have a place at the table, at the family dinner table. I do have a question for you. What is your advice with how to be patient with our families, how we can, help guide them to realize that, in our Tongan culture, kind of like you were mentioning, it's heavily influenced, by religion, and that kind of, trumps everything else. Even though we have, history of having fafafines in, our culture. How is your approach? What's your approach with, patience and with trying to help our family and our kainga to understand who we are and understand that we're not a threat and that we belong.
Thank you, Matty, for your beautiful words. Oh my gosh, people, stop. Like, this is really weird. I'm so blessed. Oh my gosh, and humbled. Beautiful question. It's just that, it's patience. It's really that. And there is no time limit, and it does take longer for some family members. Some are like quite quick to kind of like adapt to the changes that might be happening in the house or as you and as a person. I find that for myself in my journey, I really just have to take it on the chin and keep moving and just be patient and be graceful and be humbled and to be of service, because that's who we are as Tongan people. We're constantly of service and making sure that the other person is always, I guess, at the forefront. Like even when it comes to dance and the way I perform it, every time I perform, people think, you know, like people come to like, yay, like praise me and stuff. But in my head, I'm constantly having to remind myself that when I'm in front of someone performing, it's me being of service to my audience wherever I go. And it's just me as a Tongan person. And us as Tongans, I think we need to, it's just that term patience. It sucks because it's just like, sometimes it's a really long journey, but also it kind of helps you, and it reflects and it comes back on you, and it reflects on who you are as a person. I guess, like when you're patient and when you're gentle and when you're passionate, and even to the haters and to the people who do find it really hard to adjust, like, yeah, I don't know any other way but to be of service and just to constantly serve, even to my haters and people who don't like me at church. You'd still find me in a tupeno at their feet, still making their cup of teas and still serving them cabin bread and breakfast crackers. It's only because that's the way I was taught with my mum, and everywhere I move and everything I do is a constant reflection of my last names, and my last names belong to my parents. So every time I'm out here representing myself and carrying my last names, I also need to represent where that name comes from, because it's not mine, it was given to me as a gift. So Prescott and Faletau's my dad, my mum's a Prescott. I'm the only sibling that carries both names, specifically for that reason, because I represent both bloods. And I know it's like, it sucks because it's just like a long journey, but yeah, I don't have the right answer for it, but what's worked for me is just the constant moving, constant being of service, and just, it makes your heart prettier too, I find, and it makes your spirit, I guess, glow better, if that makes any sense. Yeah, and things come back, trust me. The more you give, things come back tenfold, and I personally believe that. Yeah, I don't know if that answered your question, Masi, but yeah, I'm so sorry, but that's.
Oh no, don't be sorry. That answer, that's great to hear. You know, I always say, you know, something that my great grandfather would always say, you know, use a soft shell of wisdom, you know, to combat, you know, any tension. And that is a soft shell, right? Serving our people and helping them realize that we have worth and we're valuable in our culture. And you know, when you told me that you didn't feel welcomed and you had a, you know, just some dissonance with the Tongan culture, that just breaks my heart, because, you know, that is something that, you know, is in our blood, and that, you know, it's something that we claim, and it's disheartening to hear, you know, that other people view us that way. And I feel bad for you. I feel bad for all the other, you know, LGBTQIA plus people and Pacifica people out there. And I also just wanted to comment that I love your remarks on your view with, you know, religion and also your identity, because I feel like a lot of people, you know, think that those two things conflict. And I'm personally just like you know, I believe I have a very close relationship with God, and, you know, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what any religion thinks. It's just between me and God.
Yes, you better say something.
I'm saying it to you.
Thank you for that reminder.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on this. I was so excited just to be a part of this. I'm like, I remember looking up to you being a young kid, and that just meant everything to me. And you are an influential part in me coming out and being my true, authentic self.
That is so beautiful. Okay. It's not go there. Thank you.
Sorry, I have a question. What is when do you find our Tongan community shows up the most for our Leyte community, and where would you like us to show up more in, like what? Maybe you did answer this, but I'm wondering if there's a specific time you see Tongans show up the most, and where you think you would like to see us more. I know we have to do more, but specifically from your experience, where do you wish that Tongans could show up more for the Leyte community?
I mean, I think it's an I feel like Tongans pick and choose when they want us to shine, and it's usually when we're doing your hair and makeup, decorating the hall in a performance aspect, performance kind of space. When it comes to running our White Sunday performances, which was my #1 job, those are probably the only times where I feel like Tongan, our community, really do accept us. Platforms like this and opportunities at talanoas like this, I would love for more Tongans to pop in because it gives them an opportunity to ask questions. And so, yeah, methodologies like this, coming on and having online talanoas is so important, and it's probably yeah, this is definitely one way. I wish, I know, because here in New Zealand, it's 2:48 p.m. and everyone's at work, and I know my cousins and stuff wanted to jump on as well, but they couldn't. But platforms like this, it's just everywhere. The same way you would show up to any other Tongan child is the same way I want our community to show up for any whakaliti child as well. At our graduations, at our birthdays, when we fall, when we succeed, when we're hurt, when we're happy, show up all the time. There is no difference between your sisters and your whakalitis. It's girl, come on, put it together. But you know what I mean? Definitely, yeah, I think it's just we're all the same, dreaming the same. Yeah, it's just yeah, it's all love. And it's just supporting any other family member in home, Just because we're whakaliti, it doesn't, I know it's hard because whakalitis didn't come into this world with a pamphlet, and we're all trying to figure out how, to raise a queen. But really all it is really just treating that whakaliti or that person the same as any other family member. You know what I mean? When they cry, support them. When they're graduating, support them. It's just, yeah, I feel like we tend to overthink the help that we think oh, because she's whakaliti, we need certain help for her. She needs a certain way we need to talk to her. No, if she's being naughty, girl, give her a hiding. If she's being silly, girl, slap her. If she's graduating, girl, get her a car like you would get any other kid in the family. You know what I mean? It's kind of the same deal. Yeah, I feel like a lot of our families in general just overthink it. We just tend to overthink. In regards to my artwork, a lot of here in New Zealand, I teach a lot of dance, and I teach a lot of Pacific dance, and a lot of it is based around female performers in regards to taulunga, siva Samoa, and a lot of the times when I'm choreographing or teaching, I always tell them that depending on the situation and the spaces I'm in, I tend to channel different queens of our community. So I always remind myself that someone like Queen Salote at the age of 17 was managed to rule a country with style and grace. And then Nafanua, who led an army of men, and she was a woman, and she I tend to channel some of our iconic queens that run through our blood system. And I have to remind myself that everywhere I go, that I carry that same power, and that sits in my blood as well. And so a lot of my inspiration does come from our old stories, and stories that we don't usually talk about nowadays because we live in a Western white world. And so I tend to channel a lot of the stories I learned about our queens and our mothers, and my mother and my grandma, who was a solo woman, just small things. I find inspiration from my own backyard, I guess. I mean, I love Beyonce. Yes, we all do, but it's important for me as a Tongan whakaleti that I really channel and really tune into my own hands and tune into my own backyard and look around me and look at the inspiring people around me. Is probably where a lot of my inspiration comes from. In my own life, because I do know, being in a Western white world, especially in our industry where whakaleiti stories aren't highlighted, it's quite easy for me to be like, pull out a story of something that happened to me that traumatized me as a kid, and then the white people are throwing me money. I'm like, okay, let's do that. So basically what I'm saying is that a lot of the inspiration that is usually drawn from my own life and drawn from my family members around me. But we all love a bit of Beyonce every now and then. But yeah, I think it's usually majority of my artwork comes from home and comes from koka'anga and tawalunga and stuff that I learned at home and make, like, painting ngatu. Yeah, I find it's usually, man, we're so beautiful human beings. Pacific Island people, we really have it at the back of our hands and in our backyards. And it's just a matter of us really tuning into not mainstream TV, mainstream radio stations, mainstream, and really honing into what's at home. Because it's really, that's where the gold is. And that's where your coin is, my boo. Because we're very unique, beautifully, strongly made. You know what I mean? And I think that's something I always impart into the young girls when I'm teaching them dance. Then when I tell them, the toxic beauty standards, and when they're worried about, how big their thighs are, and I'm just like, girl, that ain't your thighs, that's your mother's thighs. You would never deny your mother, you would never deny your nana. So when you look at your body parts and stuff and you're worried about your thighs, girl, you would not be worried about your mother's thighs either. Like, girl, you carry the same thighs, you carry the same last name. There's nothing wrong with that. And it's something that I'm really trying to implement into our young brown girls. I'm like, girl, you're beautifully made the way you are. Yeah, that's, sorry, again, going on a tantrum, but majority of my artwork is inspired from my surroundings and some Beyonce every now and then.
I had a question, because like I know in like America, like specifically Florida, we have like this like thing going on like with the, like called the Don't Say Gay bill, and it's like this thing where like they're trying to not teach it in schools, like queer history and like that they even exist, and it's so dumb. And I'm wondering like how the education system is in New Zealand and Tonga, if you know, if they teach anything about queerness in the school, and like what, because you're working with Fine Pacifica, if they do anything to like make that happen better, and also just like maybe like your own experiences at home, like was this talked about much, like, or like even like your surroundings in your community, like did people talk about I don't know, identities and queerness, like how was that growing up?
I'm actually the first. Well, I wouldn't say I'm the first. I just feel like my family was closeted. I'm probably the first out whakaleiti person in my family, or Rainbow Pacifica person in my family. So growing up, I never really knew a lot. Growing up, I was just naturally myself. I would do backflips, I would do cartwheels, I would think I was the Pink Power Ranger, I would sing at the top of my lungs to Sister Act, and I would just basically just be who I was. It wasn't until I didn't realize something was wrong with me until society told me something was wrong with me. So growing up, I always felt like I was normal. And then it wasn't until my surroundings told me, like, that's where the drama came, that's where the trauma and the drama came from. It wasn't outside, it was the out world kind of just making me feel like I wasn't normal. So I didn't really know about any other genders. It wasn't until, I guess, growing up as a kid, I was really freaked out because the only reference I had were like those scary movies of like men in wigs, like horror movies, like stabbing someone behind a curtain, bathtub. I can't remember what movie it was, but they were my references. And then like the Rocky Horror Show, that freaked me out as a kid because I was like, it was very, I was like, I kind of like it, but then I don't, because it was really quite freaky. Those are my only references. And so it wasn't till I guess I started like really understanding, coming to who I was, my references as to who I wanted to be were my sisters and my mother and my grandma. And so I really just tried to channel the way they walked, the way they spoke. And it was just like, I really relate to the women in my house. Although the boys would try and like, girl, let's not get it twisted. I can play rugby, girl. I will race you. I'll beat my brothers in a race. Like I will do all of that. People forget I will build the church with a baby on my hip, girl. I will do it all. Okay. But here in New Zealand, we're quite fortunate because there's a bill going out where we're fighting to teach Pacific history and the third gender in high schools. I guess that's where a lot of the queens in our industry really try to implement everywhere we go, even in all my shows, and everywhere, all the spaces I walk into, people are like, you're a trans woman? I'm like, no, I'm whakaleiti. Like, I relate to the term whakaleiti first before I do. I'll use trans in a space for political purposes so that people could understand, but I first and foremost would identify as a whakaleiti first, because there's so much weight to that. Whakaleiti, there's a responsibility that comes with being a whakaleiti. And I don't mind playing between both spirits, masculine and feminine. If I have to go out and mow the lawn, girl, I will, and I'll do an immaculate job, okay? But then I would also come and cook your dinner, and I will raise your kids, and I will build the church, and I will climb the coconut tree, and I will do it all at the same time. But I also find that as a beautiful thing, whereas I find like a lot of people would think like, oh, that's so traumatizing that, you know, this child has to do it. Girl, I don't mind. Again, a heart of service, I will do it all. But here in New Zealand, we're fortunate to be in a place where, in our education system, it's quite big that we're fighting for Pacific history to be taught, and especially the third genders to be mentioned in our history lessons in high school. So we're kind of forward in regards to that because there's a massive Pacific community here in New Zealand. We're everywhere. And so we're constantly fighting. I mean, at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, all us Pacific people, especially in our industry, are really just trying to educate the Western world, really, and come to a place of understanding who we are so that we can have spaces that are catered specifically for us without us having to, I guess, be someone we're not, or walk into a space and having to justify or mold into a space that wasn't really created for us. Like, let's start creating spaces that are specifically for us brown people. And there's brown overall, like whether you're queer, Samoan, Tongan. But yeah, I find New Zealand, yeah. And I'm in a really good place in regards to my career because here in New Zealand, especially with Fresh TV and Coconut TV, who I work closely with, which is like a resource I know a lot of people run to when it comes to Pacific stories. I'm in a position where I get called upon every time films or TV series or anything that has to do with trans narratives or whakaleiti narratives, I'm the first port of call. And the way I work is that I take a couple more whakaleitis with me so that it's not just my own experiences that are speaking to this work, but it's a community voice. So I don't know what it's really like in America, but here in New Zealand, we're kind of shifting, which is really good, but we could do more. I talk too much, sorry.
You don't. This is the whole purpose for you to be here, is to talk to us. I wanted to ask you, could you give us like some up and coming ladies that you're really excited for, you know, that you think are just going to be very good at the work that they're doing, whether it be in the arts or activism? Like, are there some names that come to mind that get you really excited? And maybe there's some of the people that you're bringing to the table as you're going and doing these things with.
I carry a tight list of queens, whether they're Samoan or Tongan or Cook Island. I think it's important that, especially when I'm doing work like this, and I say it's a community voice, I think it's important that I do take a couple of girls with me, just so I'm not like enforcing my own trauma and being like, oh my gosh, Naki's got issues, she needs to deal with it. I usually take queens with me. A lot of the queens I'm surrounded by are in the same industry, whether they're in the underground ball scene here in New Zealand, which is kind of popping off. My other whakaleiti cousin, Missy Prescott, who is in a bit of a dilemma right now in regards to National Women's Netball. She trains with our Silver Ferns, which is our top New Zealand women's team, but they would never ask her to play for them. But she trains with them because they like the idea of having that competition and training, which is, she recently had a spread on our newspaper, just talking about, she's also a dancer who dances in my company, but she's, her ultimate dream was to become a professional national netball women's player. But she recently, 2 years ago, stepped down from netball because she started her transition. And so she noticed that even while she was transitioning and changing her identity and everything to male, she'd still go play netball and they'll still say, male goalkeepers stand down. And so she's in a bit of a dilemma, even with women's national netball. They'll use her for trainings, use her to come and run trainings with our top teams, but they would never allow her to play. So that's, she's in her own journey and she's Tongan. Yay, love that. Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of iconic queens here in New Zealand who are really changing our industries and really stepping into even, like you mentioned, my boss, Felicia Brown-Acton, who's now on the police board here in New Zealand and trying to make some changes there because they've never had a trans woman on their board. Yeah, I mean, there are quite a few iconic queens here in New Zealand that are doing the work. But it really comes, we're really doing it because I guess we just want a better world for everyone and fair chances for everybody. And that's really where it all kind of stems from. There isn't a lot of really, because our Tongan queens here in New Zealand, we're quite reserved, put together. And I must say the Tongan queens in New Zealand are probably, oh, this is really mean, really pretty, really stunning. So they're not the type to be hey, scream at the top of their lungs or go drinking. The Tongan queens here in New Zealand are really, everyone knows here in our community that the Tongan queens are really well put together and they're quite chill. And it's just them channeling our mothers, channeling our Queen Salote, doing everything with poise, style, and grace. Our Tongan queens here in New Zealand are very, very, very quite different. They're very academic, they're very academic driven. A lot of them are at Auckland universities and very doing their jobs, just and very serving their families. A lot of the Tongan queens here in New Zealand are very family orientated. We're not so much out. I'm probably the loudest and out there one, but I'm not as loud as compared to all the other girls. Our Samoan queens are out there. We're all for it. But some Tongan queens just like to do things with style and grace and a little bit more poise. We just want to blend in. None of us want to stand out. That's really what it is with Tongan queens. A lot of us here in New Zealand really just want to blend in. A lot of us don't like to walk around with the flag because we don't want to walk around with the flag on our forehead. We just really want to get down, do the work, make sure our family's safe, and then our family's eating. That's basically the raw energy from our Tongan queens here.
It is 9 past the hour and we normally take a picture with our guest speaker. And so, I just want to again say thank you so much. And you are always welcome here in this space. Anytime. And we can change the time. That is not anything that cannot be, there is nothing that cannot be done. Like you have mentioned, you can do all things, so can Ofaki Tonga. It can do all things too. It can change times and it can do whatever it needs to do to be very accommodating to our queens in New Zealand. So please invite, let us know whom we can invite. You have let us know who we can invite too, so that'd be wonderful to have some of the people you've mentioned come into our space as well. But if anybody would like to ask any more questions, feel free to let me know. But right now we're going to go ahead and take a picture. Lilika, you got our picture for us? Okay, cool. And
if anyone, if you want to put your camera on, you don't have to, but if you want to, I'm gonna count down. All right, 3, 2, 1, cheese. All right, good job. Everyone looks great. Amanaki, I have so many more questions, but I hope you come again. Please come again.